Your Detroit Lions want rules changes. I just don't know if they're going to get them.
The first back-to-back wins in 2 months.
The Sacramento Kings, severely short-handed, stun not just the Cavaliers, not just all of Cleveland, but all of the NBA.
The Lakers roll over the Nuggets in a game that lost a little bit of its juice. The NCAA is absolutely praying that Ole Miss loses to North Carolina in the NCAA tournament Friday.
The Locked On Podcast Network presents the Big 6 in 60. The 6 biggest national sports stories from the local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network. Get the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 60 minutes. The Big 6 in 60 starts now with the biggest story in sports. You are Locked On Longhorns, your daily podcast on the Texas Longhorns. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The good news, they made the NCAA tournament for the third consecutive year. The bad news, they bow out in the first 4. And this was a team that started the year ranked in the top 25. They actually started the year ranked in the top 20, and they end up bowing out really before the tournament starts. I know technically the first 4 is a part of the tournament, but to me, this is a play-in game to be a part of the actual dance. So in my eyes, Texas didn't even make the dance. And to go into the year as one of the top 20 teams in America and to not even qualify for the field of 64, to waste a generational talent with Trey Johnson, who deserves some blame for this season going down the way that it did, and tonight's game going down the way that it did, but to waste a lottery pick who's probably going to dominate at the next level for years to come, that makes this year hurt even more. This was a pretty talented roster, but unfortunately, it just never came together. It was never consistent, and you felt like with what Texas did in Nashville at the SEC tournament last week, beating Vanderbilt, beating A&M in double overtime to get to this spot, you felt like maybe they had turned a corner. And hey, this is as healthy as this team has been all season long. You've got Kendall Weaver back. You've got Arthur Kaluma getting a few extra days to get his body right. Felt like, all right, Texas has a shot, even though the game is close to Xavier, even though Xavier is a solid team. Felt like maybe Texas had found something in that SEC tournament. Maybe they had the pieces to go on a little bit of a run here. And, well, for 25 to 30 minutes of this game tonight, it sure looked like that was the case. But things completely unraveled in the second half. Xavier, way too many three-pointers. They're one of the best three-point shooting teams in the country. That was the one way Texas was going to lose this game, if Xavier knocked down a bunch of threes. And they did. And Texas gave them way too many clean looks from beyond the arc. And again, you credit the Musketeers. They had to make the shots. They made the shots. They shot 55% as a team in the game. They shot 48% from beyond the arc. But this one feels more like Texas just letting a golden opportunity slip away. And they did a lot of that this season. A lot of folks calling for Rodney Terry's job. We'll obviously talk about that because, look, to me, it's felt like Chris Del Conte has been looking for an excuse to make a change, and I think he got his excuse. Again, not a horrible season for Texas, all things considered, but this was an underachieving season for the Longhorns, and when you blow a 13-point lead in the first 4 games of the NCAA tournament, makes it pretty easy to rip the Band-Aid off and make a move if you want to ultimately make the move. And I think Chris Del Conte now has his excuse to do that with this loss tonight. Also with the fact that Texas is bringing nobody back. So we know Trey Johnson is gone. He's off to the league. Arthur Kaluma, Tremont Mark, Caden Shedrick, Jordan Pope, some of those guys, I think Longhorn fans are happy that they're leaving, but none of those guys are going to be back next season. So it almost feels like, hey, this could be the time to bring in a new coach, let him rebuild the roster the way he wants to build it, and just make it happen right now. Obviously, time will tell. I don't think this is going to be a tarmac type of situation or a we'll find out tomorrow type of situation, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if a change is coming at the top for Texas basketball. And just a frustrating game. Pulling up my notes here, pulling up the box score here. Just Bad defense in the second half. Again, Xavier got way too many clean looks, some bad turnovers by Texas. The Longhorns only had 4 turnovers in the first half. They had more than that in the second half and some costly ones down the stretch. We saw one of those patented scoring droughts for this Texas offense. And these predate Rodney Terry. We saw a lot of this at the end of the Rick Barnes era. We saw this throughout the entirety of the Shaka Smart era. We'd see this with Chris Beard too, where Texas would just pick the most inopportune times to go 3 minutes without a bucket, 5 minutes without a bucket. And Texas, at one point in the second half, while Xavier was mounting their comeback, the Longhorns missed 11 of 13 shots. That allowed the Musketeers to get back in the game and ultimately take a lead. And for a while, Xavier was punching. They were punching. They cut the deficit to 4 a few different times, but every time they did, it felt like the Longhorns had a response and they punched back. But then Xavier tied the game and the crowd was going nuts. They obviously took a lead with 4 minutes to go. And down the stretch, again, just a total team collapse by Texas on both ends of the floor. They went cold offensively. Way too much hero ball, way too much ISO ball, the things that we've complained about this program all season long. And again, for the last few years, we saw all of that at the worst possible time. And then defensively, I mean, to let a team shoot 55% from the floor, to let a team make 12 threes in a must-win tournament game, that's unacceptable right there. Unacceptable. So just bad for Texas. Some bad sequences too. Trey Johnson and Xavier went up by 1. The first time they took a lead later in the second half, they go up by 1. Texas gets the ball back. Trey Johnson takes a horrible 3, and then he doesn't get back on defense. Nobody gets back on defense. Like, Trey's going to get blamed because he took the bad shot and it was his man who scored. But like, all 5 Longhorns on that possession are just like standing and watching Xavier get an and one layup on the other end. And yeah, to make matters worse, Trey Johnson just a half-ass shove in the back of the Xavier player who scores. Like, all right, give him 2. Don't give him 3, please. But like that sequence right there is horrible. There was a possession where Arthur Kaluma missed a bunny. Caden Shedger got an offensive rebound, and then he missed a layup right after that. I think that was a part of the 11 of 13 missed shots that Texas had in the final few minutes here. Just bad. Just bad all the way around. And Trey Johnson, man, you live by the tray, you die by the tray. For most teams, that's the 3 ball. For this team, it's Trey Johnson. He did so many good things tonight, but 4 missed free throws. Did y'all see that? Did I see that right? Trey Johnson missed 4 free throws. That's an 89% free throw shooter. Like, even when he's had bad games during the regular season. And again, tonight wasn't a bad game. He led all scorers with 23, 6 of 14 from the floor. Like, did some good things, especially on the offensive end, but missed 4 free throws. Obviously, one of them could have tied the game in the final minute and a half. Like, that was bad. Bad defense, lazy defense, poor shot selection at times. Like, just a frustrating way for Trey Johnson to end what, again, was a really good season, leading the SEC in scoring, leading all freshmen around the country in scoring. Again, not a horrible game. His best shooting performance since the Mississippi State game on the road a few weeks ago, but bad and lazy defense and the 4 missed free throws. When the game is as close as this one, every single point counts. Texas has a team miss 6 from the charity stripe. Trey Johnson, again, a near 90% shooter. Chose a bad time to miss 4 tonight. And I don't know about y'all, by the way. I'll hit some of the comments here in a moment, so keep them coming. Appreciate y'all tuning in. It hurt that Texas was only up by 8 at halftime. Now, if you asked me before the game, would I have signed up for an 8-point lead at recess? Of course I would have. I think we all would have. But Texas shot 58% in the first half. They shot 50% from deep in the first half. They were plus 10 on points in the paint. I mentioned they only had 4 turnovers. They were winning on the glass. Like, it felt like they had maybe the best offensive half they've had in 2025, like since they started playing actual teams in conference play, and they were still only up by 8. Like, it felt like they could have been up by 12, by 15, by 18. They just couldn't get enough stops. Xavier made their shots on offense, and that's where it was like, I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, I knew the game was over then. I mean, it's not true, but you would have loved for Texas to have been able to extend that lead to double digits instead of it just being an 8-point game. And by the way, you needed that Tremont Mark buzzer beater at the end of the first half to even make it 8, right? X cut it down to 6. They had the momentum. Tremont Mark hit that big shot late to push it to 8. But again, it felt like the Horns did so many things right in the first 20 minutes to only be up by 3 scores going into recess. That had to feel like a win for Xavier because Fremantle had a couple of fouls and he didn't play a whole lot in the first half. Cronwell had 3 fouls. He missed a lot of the first half. There was an opportunity there for Texas to really flex its muscle and extend that lead. And they just didn't do it. It wasn't because of offense. They scored 47 points in the first 20. They couldn't get the stops they needed to get defensively to really stretch this game out and make it impossible for Xavier to come back. An 8-point lead, that's surmountable. And if it was 18 at halftime, I don't know if that's surmountable. Just wish Texas was able to do a little bit more. Obviously, that's not where the game got away from them. They got outscored by 14 in the second half. That's where things completely fell apart. But again, to me, it felt like the Horns had done enough to have more than an 8-point lead, and them not doing that ultimately ended up hurting them down the stretch.
March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. New customers can get $200 in bonus bets. When your first $5 bet wins, that's $200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. You've got to have those 5-12 upsets all ready. Those 4-13 upsets, maybe even a 3-14 in there just to get a little spice. Are we having fun yet? And with FanDuel, they make it easy to back them with spreads, totals, and game props. The tournament games happen almost every day, so there's always something exciting to bet on. The FanDuel app is simple to use, and when I win, I get paid instantly. No waiting around. Looking at the first 4, there's a matchup of perennial tournament teams in the first 4. The Xavier Musketeers face the Texas Longhorns. Winner will get Illinois next. FanDuel likes the Muskies by 3.5 in this one. Do people say that? Do they call them that? So they do now. Visit FanDuel.com and get on the college hoops action all tournament long.
Your Detroit Lions want rules changes. I just don't know if they're going to get them.
You are Locked On Lions, your daily Detroit Lions podcast.
And the Lions want to change the playoff seeding and have put in so that the wild card teams with a better record get the higher seed over the division winner. We saw this play out last year. Lions and Vikings were both 14-2. They were getting ready to face off in week 18. And if the Lions would have lost that game, and look, the Lions blew out the Vikings that day, and they beat up on Sam Darnold. But that forced Minnesota to have to go on the road to play in the playoffs as what were the Vikings? The 5 seed, and the Lions were the 1 seed, of course. The Lions' proposal is that automatic bids for division winner, there are still going to be automatic bids for division winners, but the order of seeding is completely determined by record. So winning the division no longer automatically means that you'll host a playoff game. So the Vikings, under the Lions rules that the Lions want for this year, if that happens again, the Vikings would host, was it Tampa Bay last year? The Vikings would have hosted Tampa rather than having to play in Tampa. Was it Minnesota, Tampa Bay? Or no, it was Minnesota and the Rams. The Rams were 4. The Vikings were 5. The Vikings had to go to the Rams and all hell broke loose. They lost, played poorly, etc. All right. So the Lions would like to see wild card teams getting a higher seed than the division winners, despite the record. Again, Vikings won 14 games this past season and had to go on the road to play a playoff game. And had to face a Rams team that won 9 games, 10 games, whatever it was. All right. So the Lions are proposing one of 3 rule changes. That's the first major one, this playoff seeding fix. See if that goes through. The other one the Lions are proposing is players placed on the injured reserve list before a cut-down date do not count against the team's 90-man roster limit. So currently right now, any player who's placed on IR before the cut-down date counts against the 90-man roster. And these players are not eligible to come back from IR. A lot of them are out for the year. So the Lions are proposing that they do not occupy a roster spot once placed on injured reserve. Not a bad rule. Probably should be changed. We'll see if the owners and competition committee agree with all of that. Here's the big one. And this one has everything to do with how the Lions play. The Lions want to eliminate automatic first downs on illegal contact penalties. Illegal contact, number whatever, 21, number 1, number 15. And also eliminate automatic first downs on defensive holding. So again, if it's 3rd and 15 and there's a defensive holding call on the Lions, which is a 5-yard penalty, it would still be 3rd and 10, and they would replay the down. Again, currently these 5-yard infractions carry a stipulation that the offense be awarded an automatic first down. This can prove costly on 3rd and long situations despite the relatively minor infraction. Reading that off of our friends at Pride of Detroit. Here's what's interesting about this whole thing. So the Lions are against automatic first downs for illegal contact by a cornerback or a defensive back and defensive holding. Mostly it is corners that are the major infractors here, if that's even a word. And this was very, very interesting that was brought up online today. And I have the stat and I have to find it right here. Here we go. Warren Sharp from Sharp Football brought this up today. Since 2023, the last 2 seasons of NFL football, the Detroit Lions have the most holding penalties and illegal contact penalties in the league. They've got 26. Second most are the Jets with 23 and the Titans with 23. So if you have watched some of the film of DJ Reed, whom the Lions have just signed to be their top cornerback, if we all watched Terrion Arnold for the first few weeks of this season, we know. And watch DJ Reed's tape. He's grabby. DJ Reed grabs. Good player, getting 18 or 16 million a year. He's going to fill in nicely. Love the signing, but he's grabby. Terrion Arnold, we know, likes to hand fight. He's grabby too. So the Lions play tough, bump and run, man-to-man coverage. They grab, they hold at times. And look, officials, especially side judges and back judges, are not going to call it every single play. The Lions are physical. That's how they play. They grab a little bit. Hence, they've had the most holding and illegal contact penalties of any team in the league. So they're proposing that, hey, if we get busted for more of these, we don't want it. We think a 3rd and 20 defensive holding should just be replay the down 3rd and 15, not automatic first down on a 5-yard penalty. And the Lions are proposing that. I think what's going to happen is that they're going to lose this one. I think they have a better chance of winning the reseeding with the wild cards if they have a better record than this one. I think that the league is not going to give the Lions what they want here. Look, the Packers put in for the tush push to be banned, which is ridiculous. If you don't like it, stop it. But yes, illegal contact, the last 2 years, the Lions have had the most, hands down. And that's the way they play. And I like the fact that the Lions are trying to fix the rule. In their mind, they want it fixed. Yeah, if it's pass interference down the field, 35-yard penalty, spot of the foul, I love that. I wish college would do that. Right? Teams going for the home run ball and a guy gets tackled, a receiver gets tackled. In college, it's a 15-yard penalty. It should be a spot of the foul penalty, an automatic first down. But illegal contact, a little grab, a little hold, Lions say, if it's a 5-yard penalty, why should it be an automatic first down? And they want it changed. So there you have it with that one.
The first back-to-back wins in 2 months.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast.
Moment of the game here. 127-121 win over the Chicago Bulls. Devin Booker, 41 points. That's where I'll start us off.
Yep.
It's a funny one. I'm just going the bank shot that he hit, the rainbow heat check. I mean, actually, it wasn't really a heat check. He took the heat check right after that from the opposite side of the court and missed it. But Book was just on one tonight. Honestly, Chicago gave him the 40-piece because he wasn't even close, and then they made a little run, and he just had to get, like 6 points at the end that actually got him over the hump. But He always closes seasons strong. This was a night where you could have looked at the Bulls roster and been like, nope, nobody is going to be able to cover him. That's just sort of what it is. And he took full advantage of it. So that's just symbolic. That shot wasn't any sort of big turning point, but it was just one of those where it's like nothing can go wrong for him.
But I think it can be, and that is my moment too. So we can harp on this a little bit. And it's not that specific shot. To me, it's just the Devin Booker scoring bonanza. If we're really picking on one, it was probably the baseline shot later or early on in that fourth quarter. With hand in his face, just absolutely drains it. When Devin Booker's on. He's one of the best scorers in the NBA. At times you could argue one of the best pure scorers in the NBA. A playmaker of his own right, but that shot right there, the one that gets the oohs and ahs from the fans, and I think that is a heat check shot, because if you're hitting it off a bank shot, obviously he's not calling that from that far out. So for me, again, don't get your hopes up, but it could be a symbolic moment. This could be a moment where the Suns, like last year when they were going into that 10-game stretch, like, hey, man, when this is all going together, when we have the right guys in place, we can be a team that at least gives other teams fits. Because one thing about tonight and yesterday, I don't care if the game got a little close at the end. No one ever thought the Suns were losing this game.
No. It felt like they almost the Book and KD almost were like, we'll play the rest of the game.
Yeah, exactly.
Like if they wanted to push the button and say end, like sim to end, they could have, but they kind of were screwing around. You could feel it.
Yeah, I kind of not that they were screwing around or whatever. They were just playing the rest of the game. I just hated that they continued to play.
Yeah.
But what I will say in defense of Bud, who all coaches do this. It's not just him. Sometimes you want your guys out there just having fun, even at the cost at a couple of minutes in what a season that has been dragging and been really lackluster to watch and just hard to watch all year. Seeing those guys out there just kind of have fun, I'm okay with that.
In the NBA these days, it's like it's got to be like 25-30 to really feel like they're not coming back. But yeah, I think what you're saying is totally true. Like this stretch of games can get them out of the rut that they were in. I just was saying, usually when we're talking moment of the game, it's like, and then everything flips. So there wasn't really one of those today, but I think you're right that big picture, the whole game, maybe this is one of those things where it's like, hey, they actually are starting to, this is 3 solid wins in 4 games now. The Lakers one you can't ignore. We were frustrated and mad after that one, and fans were too. That's equally important. I don't think anybody's sitting here saying the whole season's turned around, but there is something to be said. Not only, the back-to-back wins, that's kind of crazy and funny that's even what we're talking about, but big, for a week now, they've really taken care of business, and they did it again, and, their best players are stepping up, the role players are fitting better. It's looking right for the first time in a bit.
And how much of that has to do with the guys that are on the floor? I don't necessarily agree with people's sometimes non-favorable view of Grayson Allen or even at times Mason Plumlee. Yeah, Mason Plumlee's not great, but he's a backup center. At times he's the starting center, but what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Grayson Allen, I think people are a little too harsh. Bradley Beal wasn't there again tonight.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be honest with you, as I look up, Cody Martin had 7 points tonight. I don't think I've seen the guy hit 7 buckets in his career as a Phoenix Sun, but I want to see more of him.
I was saying.
And it's not just him.
Yeah.
It's Ryan Dunn. It's Oso Ighodaro. Energy is contagious, and I think that those guys fed off of that. No, I don't. I think Cody Martin can't hit the right side of a barn when he's shooting the basketball.
I watched him warm up today, and I was like, yeah, it's not just and that some kind of fluke. He's the worst shooting brother for sure.
I just think with those guys in there, it was infectious. Dudes are diving on the floor. Why Oso Ighodaro ever got sent to the G League is beyond me. And I swear to God, if anyone tries to argue with me that he just got better from going to the G League, I just
he played like
disagree.
2.5 games.
That's what I mean.
He dominated.
Right?
But all right, let's get to our. You can go with yours after, or go first.
No.
First.
I don't want to. You go first because you have a much better lesson than I do. Mine is not as nearly as good.
This honestly could be something we did as a separate segment, but I think it fits for today because everybody's talking about the rookies. The young players in general. Colin Gillespie, not technically a rookie. Obviously, Cody Martin, not a rookie, but even just with Dunn and Oso, you were just saying it in the last segment, what they're bringing to the court is clearly rubbing off on other players. And Booker has said it multiple times, KD has said it, everybody can see it with their own eyes. It's not just energy, it's not just like, I think, maybe a positivity and like a fresh mentality that's not so worn down by how awful this season has been because they're just out here fighting. I think it's all that stuff. But it's also interesting to me that part of that, when you hear Book and everything, is they communicate better than some of the other guys on this team, which is crazy and something you wouldn't think of. So I want to look at Bud's history, and I'll bounce some names off you, and just we can kind of go through it pretty quickly. And it illustrates in one way, obviously, what Bud is, what a lot of coaches, I think, they're just hesitant to play rookies. But then I want to talk about, like, I think teams need this, and we can get there. But so the rookie that Bud has coached, and you got to remember, like, he's coached good teams forever, so he's never coached like a lottery pick or whatever, right? But John Collins, 74 games, 24 minutes a game. That's like, that dude was a rotation player, basically throughout.
It's an anomaly, though.
It's an anomaly, though. You got Mike Muscala, 20 games. These are names people know. Dante DiVincenzo, 27 games. Marjon Beauchamp, who was like a G League hotshot guy, early second-round pick, 52 games, only 14 minutes. There's a bunch of other names that are people you probably don't even remember who played much less even than that.
Taurean Prince.
Yeah, Taurean Prince. He was kind of middling. Tyler Dorsey was an Oregon guy with Dylan Brooks' team. He was, a little bit of a combo guard, rotation guard guy. But Collins was really the only one that this has ever happened with. And it's so okay. That's like somewhat normal. Like, I think Ty Jerome the other day went viral because he was saying he didn't get along with Monty, right? Like, coaches have that. It's not like unique to Bud. It's not unique to the Suns. But I just like hearing how much these guys are rubbing off. It's the exact opposite of what we typically think, right? It's like, oh, the vets are having such an impact on the rookies. That guy's my mentor. That guy's whatever. But it feels like this season, as like a basketball fan, as a reporter, as a whatever you want to call me, like, it's opened my eyes to the fact where it's like, I think it actually is important, and we can probably go around other teams in the NBA, to have that kind of hunger and like competitiveness, also kind of pushing the rest of your group up. Like, you do need youth in a way that's not just on the court. Like the mental and the competitive side of it, I actually think it really helps.
Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more, experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. Posting a job is free and simple, and within a day, you will have multiple qualified candidates to choose from. And you can create cost-effective growth for your company. Instead of hiring full-time, Upwork helps you find affordable, top-tier freelancers to scale your business efficiently. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's Upwork.com, UPWORK.com, to connect with top talent and grow your business today.
The Sacramento Kings, severely short-handed, stun not just the Cavaliers, not just all of Cleveland, but all of the NBA.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily Sacramento Kings podcast.
What a freaking win for the Sacramento Kings. Unbelievable effort, unbelievable fight. The Cleveland Cavaliers, I know, is the second night of a back-to-back. I'm sure as hell not going to use that as an excuse, considering the Cavaliers were taking on a Kings team missing 3 primary rotation players, including 2 of the 3 best players on this Kings roster. No Domantas Sabonis, no Zach LaVine, who is out for this game with a personal issue, and then no Jake LaRavia, who was a massive part of that second unit that the Sacramento Kings had in their successful victory on Monday night against the Memphis Grizzlies. 3 important players, 2 stars not available. And you take on the Cleveland Cavaliers. Granted, they were without Darius Garland, but you took them on and you beat them straight up in a hard-fought, defensively driven game. I want to make sure that I don't gloss over the first quarter, because I think how the first quarter went is a tremendous part of this story and a tremendous credit to the Sacramento Kings in this game. The Kings came out and they could not score. I think they had 4 points halfway through the first quarter. Offensively, they couldn't get anything going. They were missing shots. They're like 1 of 17 or 1 of 18 from the field early on in this game. They were struggling to touch the paint, struggling to get anywhere near the basket. The Cavaliers defense was forcing them into a lot of tough jumpers, and it just was not working. The Kings offensively were in the mud right from the very beginning, which is to be expected when you're missing guys like Sabonis and Levine. But Sacramento's defense from the jump, and it's not a coincidence that Keon Ellis was in the starting lineup, the Sacramento Kings won another basketball game. But the Kings defense from the jump was active, engaged, aggressive. The second and third efforts were fantastic. The closeouts were there. The communication was strong. They were physical. They weren't allowing themselves to get pushed around. They were, as Doug Christie says, making the Cavaliers feel them every single time they had the basketball and were attacking on the offensive end of the floor. That allowed the Kings to keep the game manageable. Held the Cavaliers, forgive me, I don't remember the exact number, but I think held the Cavaliers to only I want to say 24 or something like that points in the first quarter, maybe even less than that, right? The Kings and Cavaliers, neither of them got off to a good start in this game, and both teams established themselves defensively, which I give more credit to the Kings in that aspect, with how hard they fought defensively, given the players that they're missing, even though, again, Cleveland on the second night of a back-to-back. I just thought their first quarter effort allowed for them to stay in the game and slowly start to figure out how to score. Because for the rest of the game, I mean, the Kings still scored 123 points. The Kings scored 123 points in a game where they had only 15 points in the first quarter. Like, that's tremendous. Offensively, obviously, they figured some things out. They got themselves going. But defensively, they fought and scratched and clawed through that first quarter and didn't allow themselves to fall behind by 15 or 20 points. If you would have told me coming into this game, yeah, the Kings are only going to score 15 points in the first quarter against the Cleveland Cavaliers, I would have told you the Kings were probably down by 20 at the end of the first. But they weren't. And what was great was that defensive effort carried out throughout the remainder of the game. Now, I know Cleveland scored 119 points, but they had to work for everything. Sacramento's defense and their effort and their intensity on that end of the floor was fantastic the entire night. Devin Carter, I'm going to talk exclusively about Devin, and you're going to hear Doug Christie and Keegan Murray, and also from Devin himself, but you're going to hear them talk about Devin in the next segment. Devin Carter was huge. I mean, he sparked a monstrous third quarter run from the Kings. It's the second night in a row where Sacramento's defense accomplished two very important goals that have directly led to these back-to-back victories at home. Number one, their defense got their offense going. The shots weren't falling. Sacramento wasn't touching the paint. Defensively, they started getting stops, started getting steals, getting out in transition. 9 steals, 23 points off of the Cavaliers' turnovers, and 16 fast break points. It's exactly what the Kings did on Monday against the Grizzlies, except they did it tonight down Zach LaVine, one of their best scorers, and down Jake LaRavia, who was Devin Carter's partner in crime defensively during the big push that the Kings made in Monday night's win. Tonight, it's Devin Carter and it's Keon Ellis. Trey Lyles deserves to be in that group too. Trey had a fantastic game off of the bench for the Kings, playing a lot of the small ball 5 for the second straight game. He was phenomenal in this game. But Sacramento's defense got their offense going. That's number one. And number two, Sacramento's defense sent the Golden One Center into an absolute frenzy. This is, without a doubt, the loudest I've heard this building get so far this season. It was deafening. This is, in fact, the loudest I have heard this building since the playoffs. Since Game 1, Game 2 of the 2023 NBA playoffs when the Kings beat the Warriors. I have not heard this building louder at any point from those games to tonight than it was tonight. Like, it was unbelievable, the energy. And that just goes to show you, right? This Kings crowd loves fight. They love hustle, and they got that hustle in abundance tonight from everybody on this Kings roster. And, here's another testament to Doug Christie as the interim head coach and what he's been able to do for this Kings team, right? Since taking over, the Sacramento Kings are 12-3 here inside the Golden One Center with Doug Christie as their interim head coach. Playing at home and winning at home was a big struggle for this team in all the time that Mike Brown was here as the head coach. Now, Mike Brown had this Kings team finding a way to create their own energy and pick up some very significant wins and win some tough games on the road. This team was very good on the road for the 2 years that Mike Brown was here. But they never quite got this crowd into the game as much as they should have with how much this crowd brings that energy every single night. Doug Christie has tapped into that. And, of course, DC knows that crowd and knows that energy better than anyone because he played for it, played in front of it in the early 2000s when he was a part of the glory years here of the Sacramento Kings. So Doug and this Kings team they've figured out how to get their team involved, or get this crowd involved, and it's with that energy and that response to the hustle and the fight, especially on the defensive end and the opportunities that leads on offense. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. I was waiting during that third quarter push and into the fourth quarter. I was waiting. I'm like, okay, this is great. This is fun. No matter what, I'm going to be happy on the Locked On Kings podcast because this was a phenomenal fight from the Kings tonight. But when is it coming from the Cavs? When are they going to flip that switch? When are they going to say, okay, enough's enough, stop playing with their food and be the 56-12 Cleveland Cavaliers that they were coming into tonight's game? A team on a 2-game losing streak and determined not to allow it to be 3. Right? I was waiting for that moment. And then Evan Mobley exploded in the third quarter. 12 points in the third quarter. He brought the Cavs back by himself. He single-handedly shut down all of that energy that Devin Carter and the Kings had built for themselves with that big run in the third quarter. He said, enough's enough. Give me the damn basketball. And he took over. Erased that entire lead, even put the Cavaliers back on top late in the third quarter. But, man, that they flipped that switch, and then the Kings flipped it right back. They kept fighting. They took those punches, punched right back. And then they closed this game out in a very fitting way. DeMar DeRozan, 11 points in the fourth quarter, 5 of 8 from the field in the fourth quarter. He was the big shot maker for the Sacramento Kings when they needed him. He had 27 total points to lead the Kings tonight. And then you had Malik Monk hit a nasty, creative step-back jumper to really put the dagger in this game and cement Sacramento's victory. He had 22 points and 8 assists tonight. He was one of the only guys that was scoring early in this game when Sacramento's offense was struggling to get going. You have your defense and you have your rookie and your role players make these tremendous defensive efforts to really establish yourself and give yourself a lead and put yourself in this game. And then you had your stars, your main guys, close this game out. It's a great recipe for success. The Sacramento Kings found that tonight.
March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. New customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's 200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. You've got to have those 5-12 upsets all ready. Those 4-13 upsets, maybe even a 3-14 in there just to get a little spice. Are we having fun yet? And with FanDuel, they make it easy to back them with spreads, totals, and game props. The tournament games happen almost every day, so there's always something exciting to bet on. The FanDuel app is simple to use, and when I win, I get paid instantly. No waiting around. Looking at the first 4, there's a matchup of perennial tournament teams in the first 4. The Xavier Musketeers face the Texas Longhorns. Winner will get Illinois next. FanDuel likes the Muskies by 3.5 in this one. Do people say that? Do they call them that? So they do now. Visit FanDuel.com and get on the college hoops action all tournament long.
The Lakers roll over the Nuggets in a game that lost a little bit of its juice
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast.
After it seemed like maybe things were getting into dicey territory with that 4-game losing streak, no LeBron James, Rui Hachimura is injured. They have righted the ship, and the ship stays right again on Wednesday night. The final score against the Nuggets, 120-108, in a game the Lakers really did control throughout. Do want to let people know that today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. So we talked about it heading into this one, Andy. This was going to be one of those measuring stick games where we compare like the new Lakers, even without LeBron and Rui, but still a new, different vibe to the Nuggets. And we'll see if that curse has been broken, and it's like all that stuff. Well, that didn't happen because Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray were both out of this game. I
argue that means the curse was broken.
Maybe because they're ducking the Lakers. They were too scared to play.
Well, and Nikola Jokic got a case of Jacksonitis and said, "No, thank you.
Nope, don't want a piece of that." That is my
kidding
story.
Aside, he seems to actually be dealing with something. Michael Malone talked before the game. He's like, this is not rest. This is not load management. Jokic is actually trying to get through an injury. We want to get him right before the playoffs begin.
Yeah, which makes sense. But so we're not going to learn long-term lessons about this game. We cannot use this one to figure out what a Lakers-Nuggets playoff matchup would look like, just like we couldn't use last week's game in Denver to give any sort of insight because the Lakers were missing their entire rotation. But just because, Andy, the game was missing some of that head-to-head juice doesn't mean it was any less important. The Lakers with this had a chance to essentially lock up, or at least get real close to locking up the season series in the tiebreaker against the Nuggets if they finish with a better conference record or they win their division. Lakers will have that tiebreaker over Denver, which certainly could come in handy. It keeps them in that top 4 with Denver losing. Memphis lost on Wednesday night as well. This was a really significant game. And the Lakers, to say the least, came out with a full understanding of how big a game this was, even without Denver stars on the floor.
Well, certainly Luka Doncic did at the very least. The Lakers, they won this game 120-108, and honestly, the score is not really indicative of how much the Lakers dominated this game. They got sloppy towards the end of the second quarter and a bit of the opening of the third, but then
a couple minutes, but not too bad.
A few minutes of it, and then there was a period where Austin Reeves went on a bit of a mini run himself, I guess to complement the absolute domination run that Luka had in the first, and really opened the game back up to the point where garbage time got sloppy, but it really, the Lakers never trailed in this game. They led wire to wire, and the 46 points that they had in the first quarter, that is a season high for any quarter this year. And Luka, to put it mildly, went absolutely supernova. 21 points, 7 of 11 from the field, 3 of 5 from behind the arc, 4 of 6 at the line, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, a steal, and a block. That's his first quarter. Like, that was just Luka setting the tone for this game, letting folks know what might be ahead for them. There was one point where he pulled up from just inside the logo for a 3, drilled it, and honestly,
it was so clean. It was nothing but that net zone. Didn't touch the rim, didn't go near it. It was dead center inside that little hoop.
I mean, he might as well at that point have just yelled out YOLO. I mean, he was just in his bag looking to create a cushion for the Lakers that basically would allow them to withstand anything else that would happen in this game. As I said, they did not close out the half well at all. They didn't open the first few minutes of the third quarter particularly well. But beyond the fact that they got their proverbial bleep back together and then some. When you open a quarter with 46 points, close it up by 17, you give yourself some wiggle room. This is from there.
Yeah.
9
3-pointers. Lakers tied a franchise record with 9 3-pointers in the first quarter, and these were not, contested threes. The only YOLO threes in there were Luka and just for funsies bombing from the logo. And by the way, he hit 2 of the 3.
And also similar to LeBron pre-Luka and Kobe pre-LeBron, there are guys who have the permission structure to take whatever shot they effing please. Luka's one of them.
He is one of them. He did hit 2 of 3.
Sure.
But what was amazing about it, and I have given this some thought, Andy, I've really dug into it, considered it. I didn't want to make a snapper. I think it was really dumb of Dallas to trade Luka Doncic. He's really good. And, it's to have, we have gotten used to players who can sort of control the game with the ball in their hands. And I've obviously seen that with LeBron over the last few years, and have 2 of those guys now is quite a thing. But the Lakers, the shot quality in the first quarter, it was not guys hoisting up contested threes or late threes or forced threes or anything like that. These were, you can't pass them up kind of threes. They were so wide open. And, I forget exactly what the number was. They took, I think, 48 threes the other night, and 2/3 of them or something like that were uncontested. And it was just like that the first quarter on Monday. And that's Luka being able to get into the lane. No question. It's Luka being able to, hit those step back threes, which open up his ability to get in the lane. It starts with Doncic. There's no question. But now you have all these guys, and the ball is really flying around, and it's hopping and all that. And people are getting phenomenal looks from 3.
And remember too, this is all happening without LeBron and without Rui tonight. Both of those guys will create or be the beneficiary of those looks as well. In the case of Rui, he's one of the best finishers on this team in terms of just the ability to finish plays from behind the arc, the ability to finish plays at the rim. And LeBron is one of the only players in the league who can create at the level of Luka, and he's going to be back. So I see a comment from Matt in the comments section about how the Lakers went at one point about 5.5 minutes without scoring, which obviously was an issue. And JJ was furious during his halftime interview with Mike Trudell for Spectrum Sportsnet. He did not like the way Denver was able to run out every miss that the Lakers had. He also thought that they gave up too many second chance opportunities. The transition defense was bad for a section, but some of those misses are not going to happen when you have LeBron and Rui. I'm not saying those two cure everything, but they make a difference with your offense at the very least. They're 2 of your best offensive players.
It's just, they're going to have stretches where every team has stretches where they don't score, they miss. They shot something like 67% or something for the first 18 minutes of that game from 3. There was going to be a little bit of regression there, even if the shots still look good. And very rarely in the NBA do you not reach some sort of lull after running up a 28-point lead. It is what it is. And then rarely in the NBA, even with terrible teams, do you not see the opposition put 4 or 5 possessions together to create, a 10-0 run, whatever it might be.
Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more, experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. Posting a job is free and simple, and within a day, you will have multiple qualified candidates to choose from. And you can create cost-effective growth for your company. Instead of hiring full-time, Upwork helps you find affordable, top-tier freelancers to scale your business efficiently. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's Upwork.com, UPWORK.com, to connect with top talent and grow your business today.
The NCAA is absolutely praying that Ole Miss loses to North Carolina in the NCAA tournament Friday.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels.
Listen, the NCAA is absolutely begging for North Carolina to beat Ole Miss. They're praying for it. They need it. Their decision to include the North Carolina Tar Heels into the NCAA tournament put them in this position to where they need North Carolina, an 11 seed, a warranted 11 seed, with exactly one win against quad one opponents to make a run, and it starts with Ole Miss. And the reason you know that is some of the people, the sycophants, the people that just carry the water for the NCAA, people are starting to pile on. And Ole Miss now is a trendy first-round exit pick. And Ole Miss is now the fraud of the entire tournament, according to a CBS analyst. The NCAA needs, wants, whatever you want to say, however you want to prove it. It doesn't matter that North Carolina is a blue blood. They need a win to justify their inclusion into the dance. And with everybody now jumping on the Ole Miss fraud bandwagon, and UNC not deserving to be in the tournament, you can see how this is all shaking up. Whenever they play in Milwaukee on Friday, it will be absolutely massive for Ole Miss basketball, but it's going to be more massive for the NCAA selection committee who chose to do this. They brought the potential litigation from the state of West Virginia into the fold with putting North Carolina into the tournament. They looked fantastic Tuesday night, but the NCAA is doing everything they can to ensure that North Carolina has the best possible situation to make a run, including playing in a play-in game on Tuesday night and not playing in the NCAA tournament until Friday. That's not usually how they do it. It's a Tuesday, Thursday, Wednesday, Friday game. And for this year, for whatever reason, North Carolina even got an extra day of rest. So we'll see exactly how it goes. Anyway, we're going to go into Thunderdome for the first time this college basketball season. Isaac Shade from North Carolina. Isaac Shade from Locked On Tar Heels joins us. And Isaac, I just got to say this. The NCAA is begging that North Carolina wins this game against Ole Miss. After all of the controversy, West Virginia's governor threatening to sue and everything, they are praying they can win this game.
Dude, it's so funny, Willis, this whole thing. Also, West Virginia should probably go ahead and sue Bloomington, Indiana while they're at it for stealing their basketball coach now too. But yeah, I mean, good grief. This whole thing, I honestly, Willis, I had given up. I thought the Tar Heels, like, I didn't think they were going to get in, right? It was just like, I was preparing, like, I thought Monday's show for me was going to be a transfer portal show about offseason stuff. And here we are instead. I'm having to preview Carolina taking on San Diego State instead, and we're trying to figure out what this might look like. But it's one of those things that I'm with you, where my thought was, don't let Carolina get in, because they've won 8 out of 10. The only 2 losses are to the number 1 team in the nation and nearly beat them in the ACC semis. And so it's this weird thing where Carolina now is playing very good basketball, but comes up against an Ole Miss team that it's an interesting matchup, which I know we'll talk later.
Yeah, and if you look at this, in these play-in games, traditionally, the teams that play on Tuesday play on Thursday. The teams that play on Wednesday play on Friday. North Carolina, for whatever reason, got to play on Tuesday and is getting an extra day of rest, adding to the conspiracy, man.
Yes. And check this out. Like, geographically, they played obviously in Dayton because that's where the play-in games already are. As you well know, this game is going to be played in Milwaukee, which is just like a 6-hour drive from Dayton, or, an hour or 2 flight. And so Carolina has that extra time. They've got a short it's not like, a lot of times it's like we played in Dayton and you got to fly to Seattle or something crazy like that. Right. And on top of all that, North Carolina, because of how easy they had things against San Diego State, nobody played 30 minutes or more, right? Every Tar Heel played under 30 minutes, and the starters came out with 7 minutes to go. So it's interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And they have the backing of essentially the whole country. If you are not an SEC fan, you are backing North Carolina in this game. I think the NCAA is probably backing Ole Miss in this game. Ole Miss is the rare 6-seed underdog in an NCAA tournament game. North Carolina's favorite in this game. Now, is this recency bias of what they did to San Diego State? Because San Diego State did not look ready to play in that game. They kind of got overwhelmed. But I think, is this recency bias?
I mean, there might be something to that for sure. And I mean, obviously, it's the FanDuel line opened at 1.5. So it's like, one made basket swings it one way or the other here with this thing. But yeah, I mean, there could very well be some recency bias to it. As Carolina, as we were just saying, comes in, having won 9 of 11, and Ole Miss, what is it, like 3-3 in the last 6? 3-4 in the last 7, if I'm remembering well. So yeah, there might be some how they perceive both teams to be playing lately.
Yeah, and remember with Ole Miss also, they did beat Tennessee this month.
Right. And the SEC versus the ACC is very different.
Yeah. It's really interesting because whenever I was looking at a correlation between the two schools and the two teams and everything, the Louisville game pops up. Ole Miss beat Louisville in their barn by 25 points earlier in the season. Ole Miss beat Alabama. That's pretty close to all of the crossover between the two teams. And I do not think these teams have ever played basketball before.
You know what? I hadn't even taken the time to look it up yet, Stephen, but I can do it as we're talking. But yeah, I off the top of my head, I can't remember a previous matchup between the two teams either. Yeah.
Listen, everybody knows that Ole Miss is a football school and basketball is a secondary thing. And this is the 10th time all time that Ole Miss basketball has made the NCAA tournament. So I was rooting for North Carolina hard Tuesday night. I wanted the jersey. I don't care how the game goes. I wanted to see the jersey matchup on the court. I just wish that Ole Miss would wear their throwbacks in that game. Their throwbacks would be fantastic, but I doubt that they will. As an Ole Miss fan and all of the Ole Miss fans, they're excited to play a game against North Carolina in the NCAA tournament because this is a signal of a rival. It doesn't matter that Carolina's an 11 seed and all of the controversy. It's the name on the jersey that Chris Beard, what he has done in Oxford, it is meaningful. And this is something that Ole Miss fans can latch on to that, hey, we are close to kind of getting to that corner.
Yeah. And look, Chris Beard, for those who are unaware, not only do I host Locked on Tar Heels, I also co-host Locked on College Basketball. And we routinely and regularly talk about Chris Beard as one of the very best basketball coaches in the land. And we're talking X's and O's, we're talking recruiting, all of it. Chris Beard can do it all. He's done it every stop he's been at. Texas Tech, Ole Miss now. It's phenomenal. If the Rebs can hang on to Chris Beard, I think there is you think about like what Bama has done, stepping up from being just known as football to like a dominant basketball program. There is a very real world, Stephen Willis, in which that could be the reality for Ole Miss going forward. And we've seen it with the recent trajectory of winning, 20 plus games these past couple seasons. Like that is a very real thing. And so I'm with you. I love the opportunity for both these teams to challenge each other in this way. And by the way, I got the record book pulled up while you were talking there. Ole Miss and Carolina have played twice in the past, splitting those games. Stephen Willis, any guesses as to when those two previous games were played?
I'm going to say 1937 and 1948.
My man, you're not that far off, but you got to go even further back. 1923, February 28th, and then March 1st of 1926. The scores were Ole Miss 34, Carolina 32, and then Carolina 38, Ole Miss 23.
So this will be the first game in the history of Ole Miss versus Carolina to where one of the teams scores more than 40 points.
That's exactly.
I'm willing to bet that both the teams are going to score more than 40 points.
In the first half, maybe, for crying out loud. And it's the first, that was literally a century ago. This is crazy.